What's up guys, this is Mitch from BoardCo. Today we are going to have a unique opportunity to test a Centurion Fi25 against a Malibu 25 LSV. We're going to do a few things, but first off we're going to go and check out the wakeboard wakes on these two boats, see how they compare against each other, and use a semi-professional rider that's going to get out behind the boat and give us a full review of how they compare against one another. Let's go do this. All right, we are now out on the 25 LSV. We're gonna go wakeboarding. I've got Nate here with us. He's gonna jump in. He's our guinea pig this morning. Water's a little bit chilly, so we suited up and ready to rock and roll, but let's jump in and see how the wakeboard is on this thing. All right, we are now out here on the Fi25. Nate is ready to rock and roll again. We're abusing him a little bit this morning, taking multiple sets. But we're gonna jump in and wakeboard and see how this guy does. So, Nate, you set?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. All right, guys, as you just saw, Nate was jumping back there wakeboarding. He jumped behind the Malibu first, then went behind the Centurion Fi25, and he's going to give us a breakdown about what he thinks. So, Nate, tell us a little bit about what your experience was behind each boat and what you thought about the wakes behind each one.
For sure. Well, to be honest, I love wakeboarding behind any boat. To start with the Malibu, that's a massive wake and intimidates even me. So thinking about from a different rider's perspective, if you're new to the sport or if you're just getting into it, that's a really brutal wake to be coming into and hitting. It kind of sends you straight up into the air. And this boat, the Centurion, I really liked it because it felt consistent and it was poppy, but it wasn't too much. It just put you right up into the air just enough. I felt like I was in one of those older wakeboarding films is how I described it earlier. It just felt just right, kind of putting you far rather than high. So I liked it a lot.
All right, beautiful. So would it be accurate to say, in trying to interpret it a little bit for those of you who may not be as versed in wakeboard wakes as Nate is, would it be accurate to say that the wakeboard wake on the Centurion was a little bit more mellow and rampy, a little bit more gradual?
Yeah.
And the one on the Malibu was a little more abrupt?
Yeah, so right? The vert on the Malibu wake, you feel like you're hitting a wall, throwing you straight up, and that's awesome. If you're throwing big tricks, you're gonna have a lot of airtime. In contrast, the Centurion, a little bit more ramp, so it's a little bit more gradual. You don't feel like you're hitting a wall, getting thrown straight up into the air. So it's gonna help you work on your fundamentals, make sure you're taking your edge all the way through the top of the wake so you can get that full airtime.
All right. So, we talked about this in a lot of the other different videos we have. Part of the difference with the wake between the two boats is in the hull design, the running surface, and how it's set up. The Malibu's got a really flat shaped hull design that's primarily driven for water skiing and wakeboarding, where the Centurion's got a setup that's primarily designed for wake surfing. But as you can see, they both do a pretty good job for wakeboarding. Nate, would it be accurate to say that if you're going on like the real advanced end of the spectrum, like pro level style riding, kind of like what you just threw down and up, that the Malibu would probably be a bit better wake for most people? Where if you're, let's say, down where you're learning flips, learning to do spins, stuff like that, then the Centurion might be a better fit. Is that probably an accurate assessment?
Yeah, I would say if we're fully loading both boats, I would rather learn a trick on the Centurion because I'm not getting launched into the stratosphere.
Absolutely. So, and in all fairness, I will say that the Malibu, you can run a little bit less ballast. So what we were doing in each one of the boats is we were running, for those of you who are interested in settings, we were actually running both boats fully ballasted. We had all the ballast in both boats from the factory. We didn't have any extra weight in either one of them. But then in the Malibu, we were also running the wedge while we were wakeboarding. I think at a setting 4 is what they were running with it set at, which is going to make it more vertical. You could run less ballast in the Malibu if you didn't want to have the wake that big, but that shape is going to be fairly consistent. Yep. So I know you've ridden behind a fair bit of number of Malibus.
Yeah, that shape is consistent in most of the Malibus I've ridden. It feels like you're hitting a wall and throws you straight up in the air.
Yeah. So what wake was the Centurion probably the most similar compared to other boats that you've ridden? For those of you who have not
I would compare it to we used to have an X30. I would compare it to an X30 wake fully loaded.
Okay, perfect. So to that point, hopefully that gives you a good idea. I mean, obviously you can wakeboard really well. If you're at the end of the spectrum where you're looking for the biggest, craziest wakeboard wake that you can get, that's going to be one area that the Malibu is probably going to excel in compared to the Centurion. If you're looking for a good intermediate level wakeboard wake or beginner level wakeboard wake, but having a boat that's primarily more geared towards surfing, then that's going to be where the Centurion's the boat that it shines on. So it kind of depends on those different aspects. So to that point, just for those of you who don't know, Nate goes through and does a lot of wakeboarding and surf coaching here. He doesn't work for BoardCo or anything like that. In fact, honestly, like Nate and I met each other this morning. So he's not incentivized to say anything or talk about anything. We just wanted to go through and get some unbiased opinion and get as much unbiased as we can, because we could have a lot of our crew that works at BoardCo go out and throw down, but that's not the idea. Is we want to give you guys as unbiased of a filter as we possibly can when we go and look at those. So Nate was kind enough to come out and do some wakeboarding this morning, which I know was a real rough time for him, John.
It was brutal.
I know. So somebody's got to do it. He's luckily nice enough to do it for us. So as I mentioned in talking about that, one of the things that that we've lined out in some other different videos, if you guys have seen them, is when we start talking about wakeboarding, the reason why that Malibu is able to throw a wake that's as big as it does is because when you put it fully ballasted, run those wedge settings, and you could even add additional weight beyond that. You can put a couple thousand additional pounds in that boat, because the boat has a really flat running surface, which means that it's going to stay fairly level as you weigh it down, and it's going to displace water a little bit more evenly at higher speeds. That's really what the boat is intended to do. And so because of that, if you're going for that pro level wakeboard wake, that's going to be where boats like a Malibu, it's going to be where like a Nautique G series or like a Mastercraft, like an X-Star really shine, is at higher ballast amounts going out and wakeboarding. They're going to do a really good job. On the other side of the spectrum, on the Centurion, we could put a little bit more ballast than what we had running in it, but really if you start adding a whole lot more than what we were running, the wake would actually start to eventually break down. It would start to fold over a little bit. And that's just because the whole design has a lot more V to it, and it's primarily designed for wake surfing. So if you're gonna want to have a boat set up that you're gonna wanna run like 7,000 pounds of ballast in and wakeboard, that's gonna be where having a flat bottom hull is gonna be a little bit better setup. And it's just really depends on what you're getting a boat for. If you're primarily wanting a wakeboard boat that you can also surf behind, that Malibu 25 LSV, if you're looking for a 25 footer, is a great pick. If you're going to be wanting a boat that's going to be primarily geared towards surfing, but you can also wakeboard behind, that would be the Centurion. Is probably a decent pick. So does that line up? Because Nate jumped in and surfed, by the way, as well. And so does that kind of line up with what you were experiencing?
Yes, for sure. I love both wakes. The only thing about the Malibu wave is it's pretty steep. And so if you're going for skim style tricks, it's difficult because it's steep. And the other problem is on the Malibu wake, it's really soft. So it's hard to get that pop and really get your board to release when you're doing shove-its and spins. It holds you kind of down. What I like about the Centurion wake is no matter whether you're doing surf style, skim style, if you want it as rampy as you can get it, if you want it as flat as you can get it, you can do whatever you want to this Centurion wake. And it's just because of the customizability again, and also the whole shape that he was talking about.
Absolutely. So if you want to get more details on that and go through the surf review that we did on these two boats, you can check out our other video that we did where we broke down the wake surf performance between the 25 LSV and the Centurion Fi25. So hopefully this has been helpful information for you guys. We really love being able to come and see and do this. Honestly, the biggest challenge we have when doing these kind of videos is actually getting other boats. And so we've luckily had the opportunity to have a 25 LSV that's current model year to run right against the Centurion Fi25. We'll compare these two boats side by side. So thanks for checking this out. Really appreciate your time being here with us. Check out other videos on YouTube and other different sources. Also check out boardcoboats.com for more information. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later.